Britain is famous for ad hoc weapons designs like the blacker Bombard spigot mortar. Seen here being demonstrated by its crew, the Bombard was designed as an infantry anti-tank weapon for use by Home Guard and Home Forces in the event of a German invasion. It was an interim weapon fielded in desperation after the majority of British anti-tank guns were lost during the evacuation from France. The Bombard fired a 20-pound high-explosive bomb from a 29mm steel spigot that fitted into the round's tail. However, the launcher was heavy, and the 100-yard range made engaging tanks with the Bombard a proposition for the stout-hearted. The Hedgehog anti-submarine mortar was a more successful weapon, firing a bank of 24 spigot rounds ahead of a ship when engaging U-boats. Each round had a 35-pound warhead filled with Torpex, and the spigots on the launcher were angled so they fell in a circular pattern. Hedgehog rounds were contact-fused. This meant that unlike depth charges which exploded at a set depth, Hedgehog rounds detonated on impact with the hull. This gave Hedgehog attacks a kill ratio of roughly 6-1, about 10 times more effective than depth charge attacks. These are just a couple of examples of unusual British weapons. Why am I showing you these? Because I bought a box of the Land Mattress Rocket Troop for British late war forces. Join me for a look. The Russians had Katyusha, the Germans had Nebelwerfers, the British had the Land Mattress. This is BBX77, the Land Mattress Rocket Troop. It's a 4-launcher box set of rocket artillery for British forces in flames of war. The launcher is the Projector Rocket 3-inch Mark 8 No. 1, known as the Land Mattress. Mattress is the general British code term of the time identifying multiple rocket launcher systems. The projectile is the rocket motor of the 60-pound 3-inch rocket famously fired from RAF Typhoons, mated to a shell from a naval gun, modified with a base detonating fuse. The ad hoc nature of the weapon reflects that the designers were obliged to use scavenged or surplus equipment while developing this low-priority system. The brainchild of a British officer, the rocket project met resistance from the traditional British artillery arm. It was the first Canadian Army that saw the merit of the project and undertook its development. Despite backing by the Canadian Army, the project continued to struggle against official concerns it would interrupt conventional ammunition production and supply. The warheads and launchers were constructed using scavenged parts, even using fuses previously discarded by the British Army as unsafe. The rocket launcher went from the prototype stage to building the first operational battery in just 9 weeks. The unit, designated 1st Rocket Battery Royal Canadian Army, was shipped to Belgium in October 1944 to begin training. This included constructing range tables around the ballistic performance of the rockets and understanding how even light winds affected their flight. Combat trials were undertaken in November against a fortified German gun position on Walcheren Island. Each launcher mounted 32 rockets, which meant a troop salvo of 4 launchers delivered 128 rockets onto a target. This created a devastating immediate effect, but each launcher then took 10 to 15 minutes to reload. Gun-based systems remained superior for sustained fire, but the sudden shock of a rocket salvo created a significant morale effect in addition to the actual damage inflicted. However, the battery required hundreds of rockets to be assembled and fused before firing, resulting in large piles of rockets stacked near the launchers ready for loading. From a safety standpoint, this was less than ideal. The system was manpower intensive, and many personnel from light anti-aircraft units were rotated through rocket firing training. The battery, now based in Holland, fired missions in support of British forces during Operation Guildford and Veritable. Thousands of rockets were fired. As the original launchers wore out, a newer design arrived and the number of batteries was increased. Despite its improvised beginnings, Land Mattress proved a useful system, even if fielded in only limited numbers late in the war. If we look at the back of the box, there's a picture of the completed kit and an exploded assembly diagram. The kit contains parts to build 4 launchers, as well as large bases and gun crew figures. All the parts, including the crew figures, are metal. This will make the resin and metal crowd very happy. I suspect these are an older kit, BR590, that's been repackaged for this version 4 release. Battlefront are usually good about packaging their metal kits, but there's some alarming rattling and shifting noises coming from this box. Let's look at the parts. Here's everything still in the plastic compartmented container. As you can see, the parts are rattling around loose in here. I remember these sorts of things having a bit more packaging foam to stop this. Hopefully all the parts are okay after shipping. Each launcher is made up of 5 parts. There's the trailer base and the combination towing frame and elevation mechanism. Onto that fits the large launch tube racks. Then there are 2 warhead pieces for each of these. The warhead parts are a mix of fully loaded and partially loaded tubes for you to mix and match as you like. Metal detail is never quite as sharp as plastic, but these look pretty good. Certainly important surfaces like the ends of the launch tubes, trailer frames and warheads look fine. There's no flash. The figures come in 2 types. There's a set of 8 general and command figures, plus a further 12 figures carrying rockets. That's 20 in total. One of the reasons I recognise this is an older kit are these figures. They're much smaller and thinner and more realistically proportioned than Battlefront's recent sculpts. Given all the figures on each base will be the same, it should look okay. But to people who are sensitive to slight differences in scale, it will look like the unit is manned by midgets or Boy Scouts. The bases supplied are the older grey plastic large bases without figure holes. This is another reason I suspect these figures are not new sculpts. They don't have standard size round bases designed for figure hole bases. That means you'll be gluing the figures directly to the base and then using basing materials to blend them in before flocking. I haven't assembled them yet. This is more of an inbox review and I want to get it up quickly, but it looks like it builds up fine according to this image I stole from Battlefront's website. How will they go on the table, I hear you ask? Let's see. The Land Mattress Rocket Troop is a gun unit which has the large gun special rule. Large gun means Land Mattress can't be placed in a building and can't be deployed from ambush within 16 inches or 40 centimetres of the enemy. As plucky late war Canadians, these crews have a fearless motivation of 3+. I guess you'd have to, manning a crazy rocket firing contraption like this. However, they're not well suited to close combat, so their counterattack is a 5+. Hitting assaulting Germans over the head with the rocket rounds isn't an effective counter, it seems. Their skill rating is Veteran 3+, and again a 5+ assault. Long-range rockets are not good close-in weapons for hand-to-hand fighting. They are careful, hit on a 4+, and have a 4+ gun team save. Their tactical move is a blistering 2 inches or 5 centimetres on the table, the same as their dash speed, but they can really open up on the roads, with a 6-inch or 15 centimetre road dash when your rocket launchers really need to take the battle to the enemy. There's only one weapon stat line, the Land Mattress rockets. These have a 64-inch or 160 centimetre range, so there aren't too many places on the table where they can't reach, so long as they have a spotter or long lines of sight. Land Mattress fires a salvo-based template, so it saturates a large area of the table every time it fires. A salvo template is a 10-inch or 25 centimetre square. A salvo template can't be placed within 6 inches or 15 centimetres of any friendly teams, for obvious danger close reasons. Anti-tank is 2 with a 4+ firepower. Special rules include forward firing and saturation bombardment. Given these are mounted on trailers, forward firing makes sense. Land Mattress can only fire at enemy teams fully in front of the launcher team. Saturation bombardment states that each Land Mattress launcher counts as 2 weapons firing, so if you had 2 launchers, they count as 4 weapons when firing. This doesn't mean you roll any more dice or do any more damage. It only impacts rerolls to hit for having 1 or 2 weapons firing, or 5 or more weapons firing in a bombardment. Details for this are in the artillery rules for roll to hit on page 69 of the rulebook. This rule makes sense for Land Mattress. Part of its effectiveness was all the rockets arriving on target all at once, rather than a sustained barrage from tube artillery. If we look at British Bulge lists on forces, you can take up to 2 Land Mattress Rocket Troops as support options for your force. Each troop has the option for 2 or 4 launches. 2 are 8 points, while 4 are 16. Even with the sustained bombardment rule, I'd probably take 4 launches. You don't want your 2-launcher battery to test for morale and run if one of the teams gets hit. These should be a nasty surprise for the enemy when you plonk these weighty miniatures onto the table. It is a lot of points to sink into a support option, but with repeat bombardment it should dig infantry out a treat, even if they're in foxholes. So that's the Land Mattress Rocket Troop for British Bulge forces in Flames of War. I only bought these to review them, but they actually look like fun. They're an older metal sculpt, certainly the figures, but they'll look fine built up. The loose packaging was disappointing and unusual. Battlefront usually do a better job than this. The parts don't seem to have taken any serious harm as far as I can see. While the sustained bombardment rule and covering a salvo template area, Land Mattress are the finger of God of their day for the British. But really there were only ever 2 or 3 batteries of these. Unlike the Germans and Soviets, the British didn't field rockets, not land-based rockets anyway, in big numbers. Even the Americans started fielding 3-inch rockets during the last months of the war, like these ones I found footage of. Plus they even mounted 3-inch naval rocket launchers onto jeeps and light vehicles. Now that would have been scary. But Land Mattress is a fun option to have, and the British need all the help they can get. Or at least they do the way I play them. Thanks for watching. See you next time.